Have you ever given your students a problem, task, or assignment that they simply can't do, even though you've just shown them how to do it the day before? This is the problem of transfer. So what we want to do is focus on creating learning experiences for students so that the skills and knowledge transfer. In short, we're aiming for deeper learning, learning that sticks. Before we can plan a series of learning experiences that achieve this, you need to be able to say that at the end of the unit, students will understand that. This is known as an enduring understanding that you should share with the students before you begin teaching whatever unit of study you're working on. It becomes your roadmap. You can put it up on the board or on the wall of your classroom and always come back to it when you're unsure if what you're planning or teaching fits with the end goal. It's also a signpost for the students so that they know, even when you're working on mechanical things, what we're all aiming for. A good example taken from social studies might be this one. Students will understand that many pioneers had naive ideas about the opportunities and difficulties of moving to the new world. Or in mathematics, students will understand that mathematical equivalence allows us to express the same idea in different ways. Whatever your subject is, you want to start by saying, students will understand that. And then you have to complete that sentence in a short, pithy way that gives all of you a goal. What is it that you want them to understand when they leave your classroom, having completed that unit of study, whatever it is? And of course, what we're aiming for at that unit of study is that students will then produce something to show what they understand. They produce to show they understand that, and it's up to you how you complete that. So before we get into that, and we'll revisit that in a moment, you're familiar with the SAMR Ladder. From the bottom up, substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. If you read carefully how each one is described, you'll notice that the bottom levels reference tools. So if you're worried about, or you're talking to your students about what tools they're going to use, then you know that you're operating in the bottom levels of the SAMR Ladder, which is not a bad thing, because this is where they acquire the basic skills and the building blocks that they'll need in order to accomplish deeper learning. But when you're having conversations with them about tasks, which is the language used in modification and redefinition, and let them choose the appropriate tools for the task they want to accomplish, then you know you're operating at the top of the SAMR Ladder. What we're aiming for today is focusing at the modification level. So what does it look like at the modification level? Students will explain or teach what they've learned to someone else, demonstrating their understanding of networks of ideas that connect content to larger ideas or patterns. And to focus very specifically on what it is that they're going to learn, they're going to create an artifact that summarizes what they've learned for an audience that isn't you, and then publish that online somewhere. That is the general task that they're all going to accomplish. Of course, before they can do this, they will have had to spend some time at the augmentation level. And that's where they begin to make connections and show how different ideas are connected in a network of understandings, often using visualization. Here's an example. What you're looking at here is a visualization that a student has made by finding the GDP of each of the United States and a country in the world that shares that same GDP. So when you notice things like South Dakota has the same GDP as Croatia, and California the same GDP as France, and Texas the same GDP as Canada, that begins to open the door to some interesting questions and explorations and helps to understand differences in lifestyle and wealth across the United States. Prior to the augmentation level is the substitution level, and that's where we all begin, always begin. This is where we start with documentation, basic facts, collecting and sharing information. But keep in mind that when you're having students collect these basic facts, definitions, whatever it may be, have them do it in a space like a Google Doc or somewhere where they can take advantage of it to remix it digitally later. The final goal being that they're going to create an artifact that summarizes what they've learned from an audience other than their teacher and publish it online somewhere. Just so you know, we're going to include an example of what it might look like at redefinition, but this is not the goal for today. Basically, it's the same task to create an artifact that teaches an audience what they've learned from you, but they do it in a completely different context. That's not our goal for today. In summary, we're working from the bottoms up. First, decide what the enduring understanding is going to be. What is it that we want students to take away at the end of a set of learning experiences? Then we decide what our summative assessments are going to be. One of them will be that they create an artifact that teaches an audience other than you what they've learned from you and publish it. You may include another 1, 2, or 3, I don't know, however many other summative tasks you need the students to do to demonstrate to you that they understood what you wanted them to understand. That might be a test, a quiz, a project, an essay, whatever it might be. Then, once you know what the summative tasks are, you decide on what learning experiences will be important for students to have formatively so that they can accomplish those summative tasks. And that's working at the augmentation and substitution level. And of course, by the time you're done all that, you've probably already figured out what instruction you want to provide your students. In short, how do you want to teach this content? So the teachers sitting beside you are really your best resources. There are people in your group that have done this already. Start by listening to their stories of what worked, what didn't, and what they do differently next time before you begin planning your own SAMR ladder for deeper learning. Good luck. Cheers.